And welcome into Dawgs Central on a Thursday evening. I'm Graham Coffey. That's Josh Hancher. That is John Smith. You can follow all of us at the social media addresses listed on your screen. Gentlemen, it is Auburn week, D-South's oldest rivalry. Lots of angst in Bulldog Nation. Lots of angst in War Tiger Nation as well, as they look to find a way to leave Brian Harsin on the side of the road, both metaphorically and literally. How are we feeling, guys? 29-point favorites coming off of this sketchy game at Missouri. It's just an interesting time.
Here's how I feel. I feel like this game is going to go in a certain direction. And that direction might lead to Brian Harsin hitchhiking on 316. So if you're a Georgia fan leaving the game and you see someone in an Auburn pullover with his thumb out, just pick up Brian Harsin. I think I also said Georgia was going to blow out Missouri, so who knows? But I do think with the home atmosphere, with what happened last week, with the mismatches that we're going to talk about in this show, with what Penn State was able to do to Auburn, for example, man, it's Georgia-Auburn, right? So it's always going to be a fight. But Georgia's won 5 games in a row versus Auburn by an average score of 27-9. And I just don't see that stopping on Saturday.
28 opened at 28, moved to 29, which it's still a head scratcher.
It is a large number.
What is the total still 47 or whatever?
Let's see. I'll look for it while you.
Yeah, so if even if it hasn't moved that much, so I mean that's implying a 39-9 kind of game.
Total is 49.5.
So the total moved in that direction. So
49-10, or no, sorry, 39-10 kind of game is what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's the Vegas 39. I mean, that's totally reasonable if you think about it. Auburn's D, it's like they're kind of a mixed bag. You know, they're sub 40% success rate, but their rush success rates, I mean, I thought it was better than that. It's still like 38%, which is middle. It's, top 30 Power 5. I've just every game I've got a little bit of Munson going on in every game. It seems like because I just I don't. Yeah, me exactly. So I just I don't want to believe
the man who panicked his way to a national title last season.
Panic is a strong word.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Let's keep it skeptical. But
healthy skeptics.
So Vegas is made a lot of money for a long time. So who am I to doubt that this team is not poised to dominate again on Saturday?
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like one of those things where, Auburn just came off a game 2 weeks ago where they won by 3 in overtime against the team that just gave Georgia a hard night up in Columbia. They held LSU to 85 passing yards last week. In another kind of they've shown a strong ability to sloppy up football games the last 2 weeks, which is really just the most on-brand thing ever for Auburn. I feel like this is one of those where basically what Vegas is telling you is that the Georgia team that you saw against Oregon and South Carolina is who they believe the real Georgia team is, not the one that's been -4 in the turnover column the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's the 18.5 line of Alabama and Arkansas last week, I feel like, where, Arkansas was coming off of a tough loss. Alabama had blown out, Vanderbilt, but they had played a close game with Texas. Definitely feels like Vegas is doing a similar thing here where it's a big number when you look comparatively. It felt like that Alabama 18.5 versus Arkansas was a big number too, because Arkansas at home, et cetera. And I think it's going to be a similar kind of game.
Here's Auburn's D the last 3 weeks. Penn State, obviously they got manhandled, but under 5 yards per play to get against Missouri, and actually they played really well against LSU. I mean, John, you had a good tweet highlighting how they lost, but this is how you lose games when where's the offense last three? The offense last three is not good. 41% success rate. Their high water mark was against Penn State, so clearly that's some garbage time in there. I mean, that's almost a neutral, almost negative offensive pass EPA at 0.02, 37% success rate. And even against Missouri, 42, let's call it 43% success rate again, but 0.05 EPA. That is putrid. That is just not good. So as good as the defense is, and it's showing signs, I kind of highlighted that in the blog post I did yesterday that's on Dawgs Central, that as good as the defense has been growing and showing signs of getting better, the offense is kind of what's the word? Dumpster fire. That's the word. So,
word.
Graham, you have some plays, I imagine, that we can start talking about, right?
Yeah, we're going to start with that offense that you just alluded to.
We did not plan this. We don't ever script anything, so that was pretty cool. And
dude, we've just been doing this so long that, I mean, it's like right hand, left hand, just three dudes in synchronized motion.
I love it.
All right.
Where else can you find three dudes in synchronized motion? You don't have to answer.
Lots of places, but you got to pay for it normally. All right.
Not zone blocking UGA offensive line. Boom. Come on.
That's true. Okay. All right, Josh, back up. Clip one. All right, here we go. So you're going to notice here, speaking of zone blocking, Auburn runs a lot of the same stretch stuff that Missouri did last week. Much like Missouri, they're going to try to get Georgia leaning one way with these play action kind of fakes and then hit the edge with misdirection. It's not successful there, but you see the intent. You saw a lot of that kind of stuff from Mizzou. We should be on clip 3. There we go. So, yes, Robbie Ashford, not a super accurate quarterback, but he will make easy throws if you let him. I got to say, against LSU, he definitely showed better touch, not as many just like fastball throws. But statistically, he is more accurate on throws over 20 yards than he is on throws between 0 and 9 or 10 to 19 yards. And then if you want to move to clip 6. Oh, you missed it. There you go.
Don't know why these are out of order, but we're going to figure it out.
All right, no worries. If you bite on Ashford as a runner, this is how Georgia can find themselves in trouble. This is really the only way, in my personal opinion, is Georgia's safeties and cornerbacks getting sucked up. You see the broadcast did a really good job there of highlighting, LSU's in cover two too high, and those safeties come down and they leave easy explosive play. Like we just said, Ashford's not accurate on the underneath stuff. On the season, 43.5% of his attempts are between 0 and 9 yards. He's only completed 56.7% of those passes for 170 yards, 4.6 yards per an attempt. Not good. He is athletic, but that doesn't mean he's not sackable. Right tackle number 68, Austin Troxell. His back is facing you right there. He is the biggest liability in pass blocking on this Auburn offensive line. He's given up 11 total pressures and 3 sacks. And the nice thing for a defense is that if you jump off the line and get around him, which you can, you get to flush Ashford left. Ashford is a righty. He's not comfortable rolling left. So kind of a win-win there if you're able to get some good edge rush off that side. I think for Auburn to have a hope in this game, they have to be able to run the ball with this guy, Tank Bigsby. Against LSU, he only had 12 carries for 45 yards. But, I mean, we know Bigsby. Like, he's a good player. He can break a big play at any time. A testament to how good he is and how bad this Auburn offensive line has been for most of the year is that he's averaging 4.26 yards after contact per a rushing attempt. That is a lot. Georgia's running backs average somewhere in the range of 2 to 2.5 yards after contact per an attempt, just for kind of reference there. Auburn tries to use Ashford's legs at times like he is a wildcat quarterback. That's just a basic quarterback power popularized by the early to mid 2000s Utah and Florida Gator teams under Urban Meyer. More inaccurate intermediate throw from Ashford you see here. I mean, this is an easy slant, and he throws it in the dirt. So, I mean, he's very boom or bust as a quarterback, but he's not going to drive the field on you 7-8 yard completions over and over. But like that's a nice throw. It's a coverage bust, but it is a nice throw. So I don't know. It's just I feel like every play with him is kind of a roulette.
Let me find LSU 38.
37 and 38.
One of the things you talked about, Graham, was Georgia coming up, not trying to make sure that we don't come up on those plays where Robbie gets, out of the pocket. You got a wide receiver that's going down the field. You saw that versus Mizzou, right? I mean, that happened.
Exactly. Yeah. The Brady Cook.
Right. And so I think, I think that's something that was probably an emphasis in practice this week. I think it's good to point out to folks because that definitely, I agree with you, is probably the biggest concern for me is that eye discipline of coming up and letting a receiver get behind you while Ashford is running around.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. And I think maybe Mizzou did Georgia a favor by kind of hitting them a couple times for that. Because like you said, it's
agree. That recency bias, right? When that happens in a game, especially in a game where Missouri didn't have a lot of big plays and, a couple of their handful of explosive plays came on plays like that. You can bet it's going to be an emphasis this week. Or it was an emphasis.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this on the film review show, but when the camera, Miss Johnson and Lassiter having their exchange on the sideline, I personally interpreted it as that was the play they were talking about when Nolan Smith kind of missed a sack opportunity in the backfield, and the linebackers felt like they had it under control, and the defensive backs didn't. And I think it was one of those things of saying, stay sound to your assignment. Let us do our job.
I agree.
Hey, I found 37 and I found out why my plays are out of order. But here we go. We're in order now.
Let's roll.
Yeah. All right. So Auburn doesn't have great wide receivers, so they try to get the ball to their running backs in the pass game a lot. This is Jarquez Hunter. He's a very good back. He's their backup running back. You see he can do a lot after contact, after catch with the ball in his hands. This is LSU secondary is bad. Like, this is just a straight coverage bust. Credit to Auburn for recognizing it, taking advantage of it. But this is not like what you're seeing on this clip is not Auburn just like out executing good defense with better offense, in my personal opinion. This right here, another coverage bust. I think a lot of almost overthrows it, but doesn't. But I mean, I think a lot of Georgia fans may have seen like, oh, this kid threw for 327 yards last week. We should be worried. That I think was his best throw that I've seen him make as a college quarterback right there. Like, if you go back to 44 real quick, he shows some touch, but still, like, if you're LSU, you can't let that guy behind you. And Auburn's receivers they're just not that good. They're not getting separation on anybody else. This game was kind of a red herring in that regard.
Well, what you saw too is you didn't see a lot of that in the second half, right? I mean, you saw this is still early in the second quarter. Auburn up 14-0. They went up 17-0, and then the halftime adjustments. Even with LSU having a secondary that I think is significantly worse than what Auburn's going to see versus Georgia this week, they were still able to make some adjustments and didn't fix all of it, but fixed the majority of it. Auburn didn't score anything after that drive that you were just showing. So
For sure.
Yeah.
They've got a
John
tight end
Samuels.
too.
Yeah, John Samuel Shanker. He is a good tight end, 25. They, kind of talking back to earlier, some of that motion, get the ball on the edge stuff. Expect to see that with him. He's the best chance they have, in my opinion, of running quick game just because he's a bigger target and moves slower, and that will help an inaccurate quarterback. And then their best wide receiver, number 6, Javarius Johnson. He plays mostly in the slot. Agile kid, 5'10", 160 pounds. His 305 receiving yards on the season is almost double the next highest amount on the team, averaging 19.1 yards per catch, 16 catches on 20 targets. So high reception rate. If they throw to him, usually good things are happening. We talked earlier about Jarquez Hunter. What I really want you to notice here is the blocking of 25 off the right side. That's John Samuel Shanker again. Auburn's run game is at its best running off his edge. They're 5.4 yards per attempt on 48 carries when he is an inline blocker on the right or left side. So when you see him line up as an inline tight end, like percentages say that Auburn is going to run behind him to that side. Auburn's offensive line is starting to play better than they were in week 3, but there's still a lot of potential for bust. Like, they gave up 25 total pressures and 3 sacks against Penn State. They can be confused easily by exotic blitzes. This is a 3rd and 13 where Penn State brings 6 rushers and about 4 of them get into the backfield for a strip sack. I think that's going to be the interesting kind of decision for Georgia in this game. We don't know about the health of Mondon, but we've seen Dumas Johnson look really good as an A-gap blitzer. Do they do more of that on Saturday? And then last play for the offense is just kind of showing you Ashford will stare down some deep routes long enough to let these underneath guys, the guys that are in kind of shorter zones, come in and jump those routes from below. So keep an eye on that Saturday. It's been a few weeks now since Georgia's had an interception, and I think Georgia's not losing this game unless they go minus a big number in the turnover margin. But I can guarantee you there's been a lot of emphasis on winning the turnover battle over the last couple of weeks in that facility.
Yeah,
Any
the
thoughts?
defense. The defense had, just to finish up on that last point. I mean, the defense for Georgia, they have to create turnovers, and even in a situation where I think Georgia's a significantly better football team than Auburn, you can't. The last 2 weeks, you've been a big time deficit in the turnover department, and I think Georgia's had a big focus on that too. I also think if you look at Auburn, I mean, they do have the tendency to turn the ball over. I mean, maybe not Ashford as much as Finley, for example, but you can. There are balls to be had. Even last week, Tank Bigsby fumbled the ball. He didn't lose it; he recovered it, but he fumbled the ball versus LSU last week. So, there's opportunity had there. Yep.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, one of LSU's touchdowns came off of basically a sack where Ashford, fumbled the ball as he was trying to release it, and they scooped it up and scored. So I think there's definitely havoc potential in this game for Georgia defensively.
Yep.
You guys want to look at, or Josh, do you have any insights or stats on the Auburn offense?
It's bad. I think I highlighted that in the blog post. I mean, I can put some stuff up there. I showed you earlier the last 3 games, all versus Power 5. What we haven't noted is that it seemed like they had a couple of misfires, offensive line moving early kind of things in some of these games as I was cutting it up. And on that note, this is Auburn's first road game of the season.
Yeah,
that is true.
Wild.
So
yeah,
it would be interesting to see. I think maybe that's why that number moved a little bit, towards Georgia. Possibly, I think that But so it'll be interesting to see if the offensive line and the offense gets anything going, and I can see that being a problem. I don't know enough to know how many things come in on signals and sidelines and that sort of stuff. If your first road game is tough for a lot of teams, and and so that'll be something to watch, especially early in the game when things aren't settled for the offense.
Yeah, I mean, the road game situation, it can be tough. It can also be a motivator, right? You can be that kind of us versus the world type situation. It really just depends on the mentality of the team. I will say, just watching Auburn play at home, going back to the turnovers, they've turned the ball over 12 times in 5 games. And so, last week they had 4 turnovers. And I mean, just that kind of stuff. If you already have those tendencies and Georgia can get a takeaway early, in particular in this game, that home field advantage is going to get on Auburn quickly. We'll see what they're made of pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
You want to look at the defense?
Yes, sir. All right. So the strength of this Auburn team on either side of the ball, in my opinion, is probably its defensive line. They are strong up front, but they can be run on. LSU has a shaky offensive line, but here they're hitting a nice gap scheme play up the middle. I feel like we've talked a lot about gap scheme since the Missouri game, but what we're talking about here is guys pulling from one side of the ball to the other, creating a numbers advantage for blockers versus defenders. And Auburn, we're going to show you a few plays of it, but they look susceptible to that. And that clicked well for Georgia in the second half against Missouri. So I feel good opportunity for Georgia to just kind of keep rolling with what worked. Auburn's linebackers are not great. Number 32, Wesley Steiner, is the guy that got trucked in the hole right there. 0 is Owen Popo, former all-everything recruit that hasn't really panned out. Yeah. And then that's a nice backside angle there. LSU is able to open that hole really well. But Auburn does have some talent. I like their interior line in particular. Defensive tackle is Marcus Harris, number 50. He makes some nice plays in the hole. He's also Auburn's highest graded run defender. Georgia's struggled at the guard position this year. We've talked about that a lot on this show. And so I think that is a area that could be a potential pain point for UGA on Saturday. 55 right there is Iku Leota. He and number 29, Derek Hall, are Auburn's best edge rushers. They have Leota has 18 total pressures with 4 sacks on the season. He's been a very productive edge rusher. Which Georgia offensive line is going to show up on Saturday, right? The one we saw at Mizzou, or the Broderick Jones and Warren McClendon that we're used to seeing dominate edge rushers? This guy right here, number 25. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, it's just finishing up here.
So you're going to see number 25 come in here, Colby Wooden. He manhandles this Auburn or this LSU guard, the guard number 69. The recipe for Auburn in this game, right, on defense would be, like we were just talking about, take advantage of that shaky guard play that Georgia has shown. On this clip, 48, you're seeing LSU able to go back, Josh, if you don't mind, please. So, yeah, LSU is able to get physical with Steiner and Popo in the interior in the hole. Neither of those guys are great at fighting off blocks. Popo has a 58.2 PFF run grade. Steiner has a 55.4. Auburn's tried rotating a couple different guys next to Popo. Steiner seems to be the one that they've kind of decided to go with lately, but the linebacker play on this team is not very good. Georgia should look, because of that, it's also not very great in pass coverage. Georgia should look to take advantage of halfback passes out of the backfield in this game. Auburn's linebackers are slow. As you can see here, they also tend to lose halfbacks on leak out plays and checkdowns. Here you're going to see Derek Hall again, number 29, the edge rusher. LSU, it should be noted, had offensive line problems all season. I mean, they made Florida State look all world on the defensive line, and they're not. But I mean, like, these guys, I don't know. Auburn, in good or bad years, always seems to have a couple guys on the defensive line that can create some problems. So here is Troxel in pass protection. Did we miss a play?
No, they were good.
Okay.
This is Penn State. This is you had Hall, and then we're on a clip. Is that 15 for Penn State? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Troxel is the right tackle we were talking about earlier. 68. For some reason, I mixed a offensive play into the defensive side. My bad, guys. But there you can see 68th offensive tackle, as we noted earlier. Not too good. Chance for Georgia to take advantage. Back to Auburn's defense. The best offensive line that Auburn's defense has faced was Penn State. And you see here working those interior gaps. Like, Penn State ran all over these guys. And I think one thing that's worth noting as you see this backside hole here, this is a chance, I think, for Georgia's offensive line to kind of have a get-right game. But Auburn's passing defense stats look very good, but go down the schedule. Like, who's the best quarterback they face? Probably Sean Clifford, right? And he played like 3 quarters. Penn State picks on number 6 here, Keontae Scott, if we can roll that back one more time. A lot of teams have had success throwing on him. He's given up 14 catches on 16 targets. That's a really high reception percentage. And he's given up 15.4 yards a catch. These are not like short underneath routes. One thing that's interesting is against Penn State, Auburn's defenders were everyone except for number 4, DJ James, the kind of number 2 boundary corner. If you take him out of the equation, the rest of the defense was targeted 17 times and gave up 16 receptions for 207 yards. So
not great.
Not too, yeah, exactly. and I mean, like, Penn State is a good football team, but I don't think of them as a team that has a bunch of explosive guys on the outside that are just out athleting everybody.
No. Agree.
Yeah.
Once again, excellent work. Gave us the players we need to know off on both sides of the ball for Auburn. And
I think we got a couple plays left, Josh.
We do? I don't think I got. Where are we?
We got clip 24 and clip 74.
I thought we did 74. All right. Don't yell at me. I'm sensitive.
I'm not yelling at you. We're good.
That's a
just rolling, bro.
24 bucks.
All right. More gap scheme that we were talking about earlier. You're going to see a nice reverse angle here. That right guard for Penn State pulls around the center, comes and tees up Auburn's defensive end. Tight end pulls into the hole as well. And Sean Clifford, who is by no means an athletic threat, this is not Michael Vick we're talking about, gets a nice clear 7-yard path into the end zone.
Sean Clifford is not Michael Vick we're talking about is probably the best quote that I've heard on this show.
It's the truest thing I've ever seen on the show.
It is absolutely. That's what you come here for, the facts. And Sean Clifford is not Michael Vick. That is a fact.
Big facts. And yeah, last thing is just kind of the second half looked like Penn State big chunk runs, but the reason I put this on here is because if you look at Popo on this play, again, the linebacker number 0, I was talking earlier about how he's just not that fast. Like if Georgia stacks 2 tight ends off the right side like that, like Penn State does here, and gets a hole to open, he's just not a guy that like is gonna run down too many running backs laterally. So I think he can thump in the middle if he comes clean. But I think there's a really big opportunity in this game for Georgia to get back to some of that stuff they did against Oregon and South Carolina with the swing passes and the screens. Yeah. And Josh, you have some stuff on Auburn's defense versus power, right?
Right. I just wanted to talk. I mean, everyone's been keying in the run game, and I've certainly written and talked about it. You've talked about it. We had George Foster on. If you haven't checked that video out, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and check it out. It's on the dogcentral.com because George came in. The audio is less than ideal, but you can certainly learn a lot, even with the technical issues we got. And we showed some of the plays, and we highlighted the possibly maybe some gap versus zone stuff. So inside zone, inside power is a lot of any college football team's offense. Georgia runs that primarily. And it's not been running. I'm trying to throw this stat up here real fast. Let's see if I can drop it in there. Nope. But Georgia's over 56% on these plays. Outside zone 12. They've actually allowed 8.2, but that was on one big. I think that's one of those one big chunk runs. But the inside power is 2.7, 4.8, 5.0 yards. Those aren't great numbers, but the success rate is still over 50%. So I'm just going to roll some footage and if you guys are cool with that, let me find it here. Sure. And talk about what we're seeing, and maybe is this something we're going to see more of on Saturday, or do you think we're going to just not play? I mean, I'm not predicting a man ball game or anything like that, but these are all these types of, they're just thrown together. Some of them are successful, some of them are not. See if you see anything that jumps out at you. But my theory and my thing is that Georgia gets the yards they need to get. And that's why they have a high success rate and not a great yards per play. And I think that Monken is, you cannot abandon these plays. You cannot abandon the run. You have to run between the tackles or off tackle between these gaps, whether it's zone blocking or gaps, gap technique or whatever. But there's a 5-yard run on first down, not explosive, not, but successful. And those are, like I've always said, these are stats that some, like an old school guy is going to say, keeping the offense on schedule, and an analytics guy is going to say success rate. So these are all the same things. So how do we feel about the run game as we watch some of these plays? And at the end of this, you're going to see what LSU did against those same concepts that they called up against the Auburn D. And you can see when they stretch out. This is when they get to the edges. This is where the running backs have been the best.
Right, exactly. I think that's definitely correct. This is actually kind of a, Ratledge misses the block, but that's kind of like the same zone stretch play that we talked about Missouri running on Georgia a lot.
And here's, everyone's saying Milton doesn't get,
actually, no, it's not, but that's okay.
Here's a play where Milton makes something out of nothing. That was blown up in the backfield, and he got a touchdown.
Milton averaged like 10 yards a carry against Mizzou on Saturday night.
And there's a 4-yard gain. It's still it's like these plays are successful enough, even if they're not explosive.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. You were kind of talking earlier specifically about the power stuff, and I think that's what worked for Georgia in the second half, right? Was the inside power. That's where those big chunk runs up the middle were coming off of. Georgia ran inside power read 6 times in that game against Missouri for 10.3 yards of play. So that was very, very effective for them in terms of running just traditional inside power without the read aspect on it. They had 5 of those concepts. So I think you're going to see it a lot, right? That's something that we've kind of become accustomed to under Todd Monken. And I think if you're a Georgia fan, the power stuff is good. The one thing that is kind of interesting is that when they had the inside power read plays, they averaged 10 yards a pop, but on just traditional inside power, it was 1 yard an attempt on 5 attempts. So that's kind of odd, actually.
Yeah.
And of all those inside zone, all these concepts, they've only got 2 Monken explosive 12 yards or more plays this season, and they're still averaging 50% success rate. So I think they're going to get better. We talked a little bit, this offensive line is going to gel. Maybe they stop, subbing guys in. Maybe they find their 5 guys that they're going to run with. And I expect this running game to get going, and it might get going on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, here's two things to think about. Georgia is averaging a little over 2 yards after contact per rush. Owen Popo has 9.8% missed tackle rate. You have a couple of other guys that are north of 8% missed tackle rate on Auburn's defense. You got some that are even as bad as a lot of them are defensive interiors, so that's going to happen. But you got some that are like 26% missed tackle rate, right? And I think that yards after contact. I think what happened at Mizzou, when you think about what Kirby said about what Darnell Washington said at halftime, he wants to line up and move people. What Georgia did in that second half, I think that's definitely something that Georgia is going to try to build on this game. But I don't see them going away from their offensive identity that they've established so far this year, just because of what I know. We're going to talk about the liabilities on Auburn's defense, but it's the linebackers, and that's like and that's prime cooking for both the screen game, for both getting the ball in the hands of running backs and tight ends in the screen game, but also it could also be prime picking for if you have a lead in mid third quarter to line it up and just try to run it down their throat. So it'll be interesting to see. I know the points you're making, Josh, are all good points. I'm very interested to see what Georgia decides to do. I think they're going to go after the jugular pretty early in the game with just putting mismatches on those linebackers, and then from there we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I would give Todd Monken kudos for on Saturday night is that he never abandoned the running game. I know Stetson Bennett had 43 attempts in that game, but like they kind of let the pass game settle things down a little bit, and then came back and had 15 carries for 106 yards in the fourth quarter on the ground, which is very, very efficient football. I also think we have made a lot about the gap scheme stuff on this show, but one thing that is worth noting is that on that final drive, that Dajon Edwards death march to end the game, there was a few successful zone plays that they ran, like by finally finding something that worked with the power kind of gap scheme concepts. They were able to go back and hit stuff on some inside zone type of plays, like specifically inside zone read. So I guess point being, I'm very curious to see like what Georgia's run game identity is going to be on Saturday, because they've been 50-50 gap versus zone, which George Foster told us is kind of rare. But I'm not like, if Georgia was able to basically turn things around in that game against Mizzou and run for 100 yards in the last 15 minutes, I'm not worried about Georgia's run game going forward. Like, I don't think that there's a huge level of alarm that should be sounded because we saw them figure it out. I think the big key probably for Georgia is that, like, if something's not working early in this game on the ground, then try the other thing, right? I think it did take a little too long maybe on Saturday for them to start trying some of those gap scheme concepts. But I think Georgia should be able to move this defensive line no matter what.
LSU and Georgia have a very similar rush sort of metrics, and that's kind of interesting to see. It wasn't always explosive and pretty. You saw the big touchdown on a busted, on a missed tackle there in the middle of that. But they're that it's not a team. They get the job done. And I think that's kind of what interests me, is like both LSU and Georgia, like I said, they're very similar statistically in the run game. And, I expect that Georgia kind of made note of that, and that they're going to, like you say, that some of they're going to run the ball at them. I really do feel like it's going to be a very balanced game. I don't think they're anywhere close to banning the run. And maybe this is the game that the running backs and the O-line get healthy on, like you said.
I do think, the success rate stuff is a good sign, right? Like it means that Georgia is situationally successful and getting first downs on on plays where maybe they're only running for 3 yards, but it was 3rd and 2, right? But I do think, like, if you look at Georgia right now and you look at the red zone struggles that they had last week, like Georgia needs some plays where they score from far, for lack of a better term. Like, I think that you finally saw some of those 12+ yard runs against Mizzou in the second half. Like that's how Monken terms explosive runs, right? But they definitely need more of that. And I think, like, if they are able to, I'm not talking about getting under center and popping a 15-yard run every other play, but if they're able to get maybe 3 or 4 of those a half, like that, I think it makes things a lot easier once you get into the red zone. And, I think when the field shrinks right now, Georgia's struggling a little bit because they have been that offense that's just getting 6, 7, 8 yards a pop all the way down the field. And then things get tight and those underneath throws aren't there as much. So that's the thing that I'm kind of keeping my eye on for Saturday. I think the advantage, as John just alluded to with Auburn's linebackers, is that those are guys who I think Georgia can create space against if they get them matched up in the passing game. I made some notes here on just kind of what those guys are giving up. But I mean, Steiner, he's been targeted 6 times, given up 6 catches, 72 yards. 62 yards of those 72 yards came after the catch. He has a 40% missed tackle rate on pass plays. Popo, 7 receptions allowed on 8 targets, 65 yards after the catch, 20% miss rate on pass plays. Cam Riley, the other guy they put in at linebacker, is 10 receptions allowed on 11 targets, 79 yards after the catch allowed. He's given up 75 yards receiving this year, and the average depth of target and coverage has been negative 0.3 yards. So teams are getting a lot of yards after the catch on these screens and swing passes we were just talking about. And I mean, remember that Nehemiah Pritchett, the guy that's Auburn's number 1 corner right now, like, one of the things that kind of helped put the show on the map last year was us talking about before the Auburn game, like, this guy can be had in coverage, and that's who Ladd burned twice on double moves. So I think there's opportunities for Georgia to go out and make plays in one-on-one coverage all over the field. And the good news, if you're a Georgia fan, is that, like, they were, I believe, 5 of 18 passing against man coverage last Saturday against Mizzou. I think Auburn's going to be in a lot of trouble if they stay in man coverage. So they'll probably play a lot of zone. And we just saw Stetson Bennett do a really great job of shredding a zone. I mean, like, all those 3rd and long plays over the middle to Blaylock and Rosemy and those guys, like, that was Georgia playing against zone coverage. So I think the passing game could go off on Saturday in a pretty major way. And I think we might finally see some explosive, kind of 40, 50, 60-yard touchdown pass type of plays that we haven't really seen so far this year.
Offense gets going. Graham Coffee said it first. Maybe not first. I'm sure somebody said it on a board.
Big takes.
Hot takes. I'm expecting a little bit of a slog, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think Georgia's going to be in control of the game. Yeah, me. That's me. Georgia has not run the ball as inside the 25 and 30-yard line. That's where some of these drives have been bogged down, is not getting I talk about those getting the yards they need to, and they do get them, and they have converted on a good amount of them, but the efficiency does bog down in the red zone. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not great. And you've seen that, and you've seen a lot of field goals. And I said it on the text thread. I was like, I don't like seeing my field goal kicker leading the SEC in points scored. So I would really and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we just, like we get some of these big plays and we blast them up the middle and we start scoring and we roll. I'm expecting like a 35-10 game, 30, I don't think we're going to get to 40. I don't think Kirby even wants to get to 40. I think he's going to keep running the ball, especially in the second half if we've got a lead, not giving them any chance to get extra possessions. I do think that Auburn, it could be a boat race for Auburn too, as bad as that offense is. If the defense, if they don't get any big plays, if they don't get any busted coverages, if they don't get any big missed tackles from the defense, and they play sound, good quality defense, it just could be ugly too. So those are my two scenarios. Covering the total hedge, but that offense is bad though. God, it's bad.
Yeah, and I mean we just haven't really seen them at least under Ashford go on a touchdown. I mean they had a 14-play drive to start the Mizzou game that was all rushes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean stranger things have happened, but I don't see a world where a Kirby Smart defense is getting run down the field for a touchdown drive on 14 plays. Like something's going to break in there somewhere. I think if Georgia doesn't bust coverages, I don't know how Auburn scores touchdowns in this game. I just really don't.
Yeah. Auburn, so they're in FBS games. They are 69th in opponent average time possession. So their defense is staying on the field a long time. And I think some of that comes down to, the types of teams that they've played, right? Penn State, LSU, teams that are going to run the ball, hold the ball. But their offense is not doing anything for them in terms of getting that defense some rest. And so for me, I don't feel like, again, I said this last week about Mizzou, so I want to own that. But I mean it. I really mean it this time. No, I mean, so what happened at Mizzou when you think about night game on the road in the SEC? You have a halftime moment where you have leaders step up and address the team. The tone changes. The second half, you dominate, at both lines of scrimmage, outside of, a couple plays. Like, I think that's a momentum builder. And I also think with this being Georgia being at home, a 3:30 kick, Sanford Stadium, one of the biggest recruiting weekends of the season for Kirby Smart. I just don't see a way where it can be a slog. I don't think Auburn's defense, it might, maybe it'll be a rock fight for a little while, maybe, a few possessions, but I don't see any way that Auburn's defense doesn't just get worn down pretty quickly, because their offense, I feel like, is going to be a lot of 3 and outs. Yeah, and when that starts happening, it's just like, all right, you get Brock Bowers on a sweep, and the whole defense has to chase him down the field, and then Robbie Ashford and company come out there and go 3 and out, and then all of a sudden you get Lab McConkey on a screen. Like, that stuff feels like it's going to happen a lot.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, we talked about it. This is the first road game for Auburn this season. The defense has been on the field for over 160 snaps versus Mizzou and LSU. I mean, and I'm not, no bye. So the defense could potentially be gassed. I don't know, Graham. Maybe you do, having done all this analysis, how deep they go on defense, but I would expect it's not very deep. So
Taquito Spikes was on 100 Sanford last night, and that was a big thing that he pointed out, was just the lack of depth on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, so I just don't, for those reasons, I just don't see any way really, I think Georgia's going to be able to wear the defense out early. There's not depth there, and Mizzou feels like such an enigma because of those few plays and the missed tackles. If Georgia comes out missing tackles on Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter, then we're in trouble. But I just don't. Again, I just think all the momentum is in Georgia's favor coming into this game, of what's on the line, where it's played, what it means for the people in the audience, and what it means for the players. Right? I mean, Georgia, They're for the first time this year, Georgia is in this situation where I really feel like they feel a little bit like their backs against the wall, even though it's not their number 2 team in the country. But I really feel like they're feeling,
yeah, they felt the margin get tighter for sure.
Yeah, they did.
I don't think back against the wall, but they definitely realized
2 weeks in a row. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row, they're coming in. It's like, all right, it's time. It's go back to what Kirby said last year, right? I feel like this is you're either elite or you're not kind of game for Georgia, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's will the real Slim Shady please stand up kind of situation, right? Like, which Georgia team is the real Georgia team? Is it the one we saw against Oregon and South Carolina, or is it the one that we saw against Missouri and Kent State, even though they never punted against Kent State? So I feel like there's been a lot more made out of that game than probably should have been. But I think the only way this goes bad for Georgia is, you're missing Jalen Carter in the middle of that defense, and this linebacker room is not very healthy. We know that, right? I think everyone has some sort of like nagging injury or something going on, with the exception of Dumas Johnson at this point. And just Auburn's able to run you to death. We've never seen that happen under Kirby Smart. So that's not where I'm going to place my money or confidence. I think that the first quarter of this game is really, really important, though. I think like that, this Auburn team, I think is in a very fragile place, psyche wise. You did win that game against Mizzou, but like you just blew a 17-point lead at home, where you gave up 85 passing yards, and your quarterback that we all know is very inaccurate somehow managed to give you 340 something passing yards on his side, and you still didn't win. So I think this is one of those where it's like, if Georgia comes out and scores a touchdown, gets 3 and out, goes down, scores again, like this thing could get sideways very, very quickly, just because I don't think there's much belief left in this Auburn team right now. And, you saw the bravado from the center in the press conference, but like, I think that did Georgia a huge, huge favor. And I think a lot of these young defensive tackles and defensive linemen that are going to have to fill in on Saturday probably took that kind of personally and are going to want to show something. So that makes me feel better about Georgia's opportunity to play the run. But I don't think Georgia came out very focused or motivated against Missouri, and I think they will in this football game. And from what I've been told, like they've had a very focused and intense week of practice. So we'll see.
Which is a little different than what we heard last week, for what it's worth. I didn't hear. I mean, I heard good practices. I didn't hear intense practices. I think I personally think something changed in the second half of the Missouri game, and I think it's going to carry over. Also, the good news for Auburn is no matter what happens Saturday in Sanford Stadium, they've got to go to Ole Miss at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium next week. So nothing gets easier for Auburn. And I think this stretch, just that dogfight in overtime with Missouri, what happened with LSU, it was a night game at home, and then coming to Sanford Stadium for your first road game. I just think it's going to be too much for them.
All right, a couple things we got coming up. First off, please check out. I'm not going to. You go. I yield my time. Good, Graham. What you got?
I need score predictions from
you. Yeah, let's do it.
35-10.
Okay. Wait.
35-10. You asked for my score prediction. I think Georgia's going to score. Not 30. All right, that's no field goals. All right. 38-10.
Wow, oh, it got bigger. Wow. Okay.
It got bigger. All right. But that's not a cover.
No, but I love it. No, I love it. I love that we went from slog.
That's an under and a cover and no cover, right?
You think Auburn scores a touchdown then, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Is it on the backups or the first team?
I think they're going to get a touchdown in the first half.
Okay.
I think Tank's too good. I think the defense is definitely of the bend don't break, and they've got to get Tank involved. They're gonna give it all. They're gonna feed him a lot. So I think
they haven't. Like that's what I
but
mean.
they're on the road. They don't want to put the ball. They're not going to let Ashford throw it a lot.
I
Especially
understand what
early
you're
in the game
saying,
until
but
they're down. So I can see Tank getting. I can see a 28-7 halftime score and just some death marching in the second.
I understand what you're saying, but Tank Bigsby, he ran it 19 times for 44 yards versus Missouri, 12 times for 45 yards versus LSU. Like,
yeah.
All right, I'm an idiot. What's yours? What you got?
No. I'm not saying that about you. I'm saying I agree with you. They have to get Tank involved. Like if they have any hope to win this game, Jarquez Hunter and Tank Bigsby have to be impact players for the game. I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. He carried the ball 9 times for 39 yards versus Penn State. It's like
Josh poo-poos the offense. Everyone drink.
My score prediction, I'm going 41-6. I don't think Auburn scores a touchdown. I think they get 2 field goals. I think Georgia has a couple field goals, but I personally think this is going to be the largest margin of victory. I'm gonna say this, and then so everyone watching this, you can clip it on YouTube when I'm wrong. You can clip it on YouTube and post it on Twitter and point out that I'm wrong. The largest margin of victory in this series ever was 41 points by Georgia in like 1946. In 2011 and 2012, Georgia won 45-7 and 38-0.
Right.
I don't think we're going to cross that 41 point victory to set the record, but I think we're going to go pretty close. I think this is going to feel like a 2011 and 2012 game personally. And so clip it when I'm wrong, and when I'm right, you can guarantee I'm going to clip it and put it out there. So there we go.
All right. I like it. I'm going, I've had like 9 in my head all week as the number of points that Auburn scored in this game. And then realized that their team total is 9.5 in this game, which made me kind of like that 9 number even more. But their field goal kicker has been struggling, Anders Carlson. He's had a bad kind of go of things lately. I am going to say 6. I think they probably – I don't know. I think there's actually shutout potential in this game, though, because, I think that Auburn – I think they may hit a field goal or 2 here and there, but I think they're going to have to, like last year's game, they're going to have to go for it on 4th down in Georgia's end of the field if they get down there. And I don't think they'll get very many of them because I don't think Robbie Ashford is accurate on 0 to 9 yard passes. I know he's not. I've seen the stats. I've seen the tape. So
give us your score one more time, Graham.
45-6.
45.
I think you said 56 because you broke up there. So 45-6.
Oh,
like
45,
sorry.
All right. 38-10, 41-6, 45-6. If any of those happen, I will be a very, very happy person on Saturday.
39-point win. Smash the.
All right, couple things. I'm gonna talk. We are going to be live at the Glass Building, which is on Millage, across from the Theta Chi House. I don't have the address, but we'll certainly tweet it out. It's very near the corner of Baxter and Millage, right there in the heart of Greek Row. There, we're very excited to be. We are a guest of the UGA Rugby Club. We're going to have those guys on and talk about UGA rugby, and it's actually a very long history at the University of Georgia as a club team, and these guys are a lot of fun, and they're super excited to be hosting Dawgs Central live, and they want to be partners with us as we go and try to do a lot of shows over in Athens on Saturday. So we've got some special guests, and it's going to be fun. A little different than our show in Oregon, but it was a proof of concept, and now we're gonna do it again. We're gonna try and attempt to invite you guys to come on with your score predictions live on Dawgs Central Live. And then on Saturday night, we're going to cut it up and have some fun and talk about the game and talk about college football on Saturday night on a similar show. So we're going to be on air a lot, right? Is that the plan, John?
That's I have committed this week to doing a Saturday night show. I'm going to the game. I will be there for the live show in the morning. We'll be tailgating, then we'll be at the game. No guarantee what kind of shape I am in, which is going to make for great content. It's going to make for great content.
We don't want you in good shape.
I have committed to being on Saturday night, so and we will get Dawgs Central members will be able to join that live with us and just react to whatever happens on Saturday. Not just for Georgia, but even across college football, because college football is fun. We got some good games this weekend.
We're gonna have some fun. It's a big weekend, and sort of kind of like the last. I don't want to look too far ahead past Vanderbilt, but for being real, this is the last big game before the cocktail party. So we're gonna have some fun. And Graham, I hope you're going to be able to join us for some of that. I know you dig deep and watch a lot of football for us and break it down for us and tweet and write posts and everything. But I hope you'll cut up with us for a little bit and say, "Yeah, like, there it is, thumbs up."
It'll be fun.
All right, I'll be there. I'll cut up with you.
Hell yeah, you will.
I love cutting up.
Somebody's got to be there to. Never mind.
No.
I was going to talk about your feelings, Josh. But we'll talk.
I'm married with 2 teenagers, man. I got no feelings.
Me too. I have a 13-year-old. Me and Josh, listen, there's no feelings. All right.
You just
great.
This is why we have.
All right. It's been fun. This has been a Dawgs Central production. We're going to be doing this on. Well, if you watch it on the premiere, if you didn't watch it on the premiere and you watched it on replay on YouTube, thank you. But also, we're going to premiere these. So if you want to get in the chat and talk to us while these shows go on, look out for those. And the best way to find out about when they're on is to subscribe to the YouTube channel, right?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
They said yes. All right, we're out of here. Graham's already tweeting. All right, we'll see you guys.
See ya.
Tweeting the show.